Hi everyone, it's Margie DePaulo with Choices with Margie, a platform where our guests will discuss how those choices affect their life, maybe not such a great way, or really, really well, in where their journey goes. Challenges, regrets, stay the course, all kinds of things that are going to tell them how to live their best life or how their lives affect others. And today's guest is Lynn Klotz. Lynn is the president and on the board of directors for the Canandaigua Watershed Association. And I wanted Lynn to come in today to talk about how she got involved in it and how her involvement affects that board and affects the Watershed Association. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you, Margie.
So how did you get involved? Give me a little history.
Well, my husband and I have enjoyed Canandaigua Lake for a really long time. His family had a place down on the southeast end of the lake for several years, and we loved the clean, cool water. We loved the fact that there was very little boat traffic in the southern end of the lake. But unfortunately, due to some family circumstances, my mother-in-law had to let that place go. And we were desperate to get back on the lake. We finally found a small seasonal cottage built in 1897 on the Neath. I'm sorry?
1897.
Yes, it's very old. It's
quaint.
Yes, the weather inside the cottage is pretty much the same as the weather outside the cottage, except for rain. So the roof does a good job there. So we fell in love with this little seasonal cottage, with a nice flat walk-in beach. And I love looking for fossils. And that was back in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2015, my friend and I noticed her place was a little farther south, that our beaches, the water on our beaches was suddenly turning bright green. And 2015 was the first year that there was a reported and confirmed harmful algal bloom, also known as HABs for short.
And what does that do?
So, it's actually not an algae, it's a bacteria. And this particular type of bacteria, it's a cyanobacteria, has been around for over 3 billion years. So they have evolved, and they're really good at adapting to the environment or the microenvironment so that they can continue to thrive. So the algae proliferates in water where the water temperature is warm, the air temperature is warm, there's not a lot of wind, and there are nutrients. So phosphorus is the key nutrient, we think, is the primary nutrient that helps feed the algae. Also nitrogen and carbon. So I had called at that time when I was noticing this bright green water. I had
Is it mostly on the shore or
That's where we were noticing it, in the shore. And, we have a dog and, worried about, is the water safe? Is it clean?
Mm-hmm.
I had called the watershed manager, Kevin Alvani, who is the director for the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Council. So he's a municipal organization. He said, he taught me quite a bit about what a HABs was. And he said, you should talk to the Watershed Association, and connected me with Lindsay McMillan, who I met. She's the director for the association and very knowledgeable. And I started getting involved. I started learning more. I mentioned my friend, Sally Napolitano, our kids, along with your son, we've known for 25 years. They went to elementary school and then ended up at the same high school also. And so Sally and she had just bought a place a year later, about a half a mile south of us, and she was seeing the same thing on her shore. So we both were concerned and learning, doing some online research, and we connected with some folks at Seneca Lake Pure Waters Association, and they were doing a very robust program using volunteer shoreline monitors. And they were really willing to share their program and how they set it up. And Sally and I took it to the board of directors for CLWA. And they said, "This sounds great. Do you guys want to run it?" So
Hello.
about 15 years ago, I made a New Year's resolution that I wasn't going to complain about something if I wasn't willing to be part of the solution. And I've tried pretty hard to stick to that, or at least be informed if I'm going to
Is
complain.
this something that's been happening in all of the Finger Lakes?
Now it is. So it started, some of the Finger Lakes have seen harmful algal blooms much earlier than Canandaigua. Some were a little bit late, but now all 11 of the Finger Lakes are experiencing harmful algal blooms.
Because I was in Skinny Atlas on Saturday and I was like noticing that water is so blue.
So, the color of the water can be attributed to many things. A lot of it is the geology of the land around it, what the little microenvironments are in different areas, what kind of macrophytes they have, which is seaweed, freshwater seaweed, and what the
getting really technical here.
Yeah, what the nutrient
over my head.
Right. So, and that's that was so getting into the organization. I wasn't that interested in becoming a board member, but it seemed like that was the only way to really kick off this program, because it was involving requiring so much time. Neither Sally nor I have science backgrounds, at least I don't, and so the learning curve was pretty steep. But based on the amount of work that we were going to have to put into this program, with the support of the director and the rest of the board, it became clear it made sense to really be invested in the organization at the board level.
So your entry into this was welcome with open arms?
Yes, it was. I've attended board meetings for several different organizations, and one of the things I was really excited about with CLWA was that each board member was pretty invested, kind of had a cause that they were a champion for. And so, it seemed like everybody had a role to play and they were fulfilling a role. And I thought, oh, that's something I'd like to be involved in. So that was back in 2018. We joined, Sally and I both joined the board. And there are several people on the board who've been involved in CLWA for 10, 15, 20 years. So I think they were excited to have some different people, some folks perhaps newer to the Watershed Association, to the watershed period. We were welcomed, and transition isn't always smooth. So, we have different ideas, and but it's good. It's growth.
So what effect have you had then on the Canandaigua Lake?
So we are a 501c3 nonprofit, environmental based, community supported organization. So we don't have direct access for making change in legislation or rules, but we are really involved in advocating for sound public policy. So if there is perhaps a development proposed, we would look at the environmental concerns related to that. We're certainly not, anti-development, but we just want to make sure that the towns and the county planning codes, zoning codes, meet the best requirements for protecting watershed health. So a lot of people think that, we're only concerned about the quality of the lake, which is obviously a primary concern. But the bigger picture is that a watershed is defined by the highest ridges that flow into a certain body, so a certain water body. So it's really important that everybody in the watershed understand that what they do to their lawn, their farmland, their streams, their creeks, their road ditches, their own private property, it all contributes to what ends up in the lake. So what we've done is really increased the knowledge, hopefully the knowledge. We've tried really hard to educate the community at large. and have increased our membership base to include much more people that are not just lakefront homeowners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, with Canandaigua Lake, you have people that have been there for generations and then you have a lot of new
Correct.
builds, and especially like up at the top of the lake, it's always having development. And are you guys involved in any of that?
Well, no,
and more
not,
commercial too.
well, not technically. I mean, we don't. What we do is advocate for sound public policy through education and research, and as I said, we try to. Our mission is to preserve, protect, and restore. So, our primary goals are exploring and supporting research that will help lead to hopefully mitigation efforts for harmful algal blooms, for, we support a watercraft steward program. So we work with several partners, and that's key because as the board of directors is currently at 14, and we're all volunteers. We have a staff of 3 at this point, plus an additional 2 watershed educators that teach watershed macro invertebrates, micro invertebrate classroom lessons, student experiences in 4 different schools: Naples, Canandaigua, Marcus Whitman, and St. Mary's in Canandaigua. So, we can't do, our board of directors and our volunteers, we are not scientists, we are not conducting science, but we are collecting a lot of data that then we work with other research institutions who can write papers and make recommendations and follow up on potential mitigation strategies.
So from 2015, when you first noticed a difference in the water, what effect have you seen going into 2023?
So we haven't solved the harmful algal bloom problem.
Mm-hmm.
The state Department of Environmental Conservation has not solved the harmful algal bloom problem. So we work with the state, we work with the counties, we work with Finger Lakes Institute at Hobart William Smith, SUNY ESF. We've worked with professors at Brockport and Binghamton University. I mean, there's so much information out there, and it's, kind of like the $65,000 question,
Mm-hmm.
what are the causes? Climate change, impulse, nutrient loading, heavy storms, so more intense, stronger rain flushes things into, things that shouldn't be in the lake. So have we solved HABs? Absolutely not. It's a global problem. And we are, a lot of the research that we're exploring is trying to uncover the causes so that we can maybe push for legislation
Mm-hmm.
that might reduce some of the factors.
Have you guys seen what effects it has on, like, if somebody goes swimming or the dog goes in the water? Or...
So harmful algal blooms are particularly toxic for, well, first of all, not all blooms are toxic.
Mm-hmm.
What is unique about Canandaigua Lake is that we have higher levels of toxicity than most of the other Finger Lakes. So they can be particularly harmful to pets and livestock. And that's mostly because dogs will commonly lick their fur when they come out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
So they're ingesting at a much higher proportion of potential toxins than, say, you or me swimming in the water. It can cause, these blooms, whether they're toxic or not, can cause all kinds of issues, allergy rashes, allergy symptoms, irritated eyes. If you have an open cut, it might get infected a little bit. I think one of the most common things is that I would get, and I'm particularly sensitive, but if I was wearing cloth sandals, with a a strap around my foot and I was in and out of the water, I would get a rash right in that area. But another important factor is that the Canandaigua Lake provides drinking water to over 70,000 people. So one of the ways we have advocated was talking with the watershed manager and working with the water treatment plant purveyors in alerting them when we are seeing blooms. And subsequent to that, maybe our introduction to them in the 2019, they are now testing on a monthly basis during what we call HAB season for many toxins, the microcystin and some of the other, PFOS, some of the forever chemicals you might have seen talk about those in the news. So, we're proud that we're kind of nudging some of the municipal water treatment plant purveyors. We've also had an extensive program alerting the people who aren't connected to a public water system. A lot of people in the south end of the lake where there are
propane. They have to do like
they're
not connected
yes
at all.
they well right, so they draw their water from the lake and then they run it through some kind of treatment system. The issue with that is that there is no water treatment system available on the market that completely removes the toxins. So a big part of what we do in the summer is provide public notification, so that can go to those people who have their own water treatment systems and just let them know that they might consider using bottled water for a few days or until we know. So the Department of Environmental Conservation, New York State DEC, their tagline is, if you see it, avoid it. One of the concerns we as an organization have had is that if you see it, avoid it, but what about just before you see it, or what about just after you see it? That hasn't been very carefully quantified and analyzed. So that's that's some of the monitoring that we do, is to look at water samples prior to a bloom and after a bloom.
So what's your hope going forward for your association?
Well, obviously, we like to get more members. Membership helps support our organization, how we spend our money. So the membership dollars are really important so that we can work on, bigger and more robust research projects. But ideally, we'd like to have 100% of our lakefront property owners, understanding that what they do in their yard could be impacting the lake, is definitely impacting the lake. So we have a lake-friendly lawn care program, a lake-friendly living program, really, asking folks to reduce, it's a voluntary pledge you can take, asking folks to reduce the number of chemicals, herbicides, or fertilizers they put in their yard. Have them clean up their beaches so that organic material isn't rotting on the shoreline, because that again just adds nutrients back into the lake. You'd be surprised at the number of folks that will blow their fall leaves right into the water.
No, you see stuff all the time. You're like, really?
Yes. So, and ultimately we'd like to get more coordination and cohesion around the lake with the different municipalities on waterfront and shoreline protection. We were successful several years ago in working with the council on getting the municipalities to tighten their wastewater treatment laws. So we feel like the septic tanks around the lake are much better organized and reviewed and inspected than they have been. So that's a big part of it. We'd also like to engage the agriculture community a little higher upstream, if you will, to appreciate the value of healthy soil contributes to healthy water.
Well, Lynn, I'm so proud of you that you're doing all this. This is crazy.
It is.
Well, good.
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Thank you very much.
You talked over my head quite a bit, which isn't hard. But I'm like, whoa! No, but I mean, I just think it's amazing that you're doing this, and I applaud you. So,
Well, thank
but
you.
thank you to Lynn, and I wish you the best with. And then I'll come down to your cottage so that I can partake. I won't go in the green. No, I'm kidding.
No. You come down when the
But
water's
anyway.
clear.
Oh,
And hopefully we'll have more clear days than
Yeah.
not. And I just have to say, I value our friendship and this platform. And
thank
I
you.
couldn't do what we do as an organization without, our director and the full board of directors. They're just a great group of people and very passionate and like-minded. So
I'm always amazed at the choices that people make to just enrich their lives and be more involved and to affect all kinds of places in this world. So again, thank you, Lynn Klotz, for coming in. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And stay tuned for our next episode with Choices with Margie. Thank you.